Okay, so I'm Val Solomon, and this is my good friend Cassandra Spencer. And we are, we've known each other, I don't know how many years now, maybe 5 years, 6 years, something like that. But we primarily knew each other on social media, and we actually just met like for the first time in person like a year and a half ago, right?
Right.
But we're kind of tight, we vibe really well, and we actually have matching tattoos. And we have a cool relationship. I love you to death. I don't know if you know
I love you too.
And so Cassandra and I, we've done a couple video type chats and really like having conversation with her. And so recently in the news, there was a lot of, negative stuff going on or, just noise in the media with the whole football thing and the kneeling for the anthem. And what I was hearing was that they were doing that because they wanted to have a conversation. They wanted to start a conversation about race, right? And I just wasn't seeing, at least in my networks or where I get my information, wasn't seeing any conversation happening. I was just hearing all the like, let's talk, this is a problem, but nobody was really having a discussion that I know of. Maybe it is happening somewhere else, but it's not mainstream enough to where it's coming into my world. And so I just thought, hey, Cassandra, let's just chat about this. Let's just like have a conversation and see where it goes. And so we're recording this, and hopefully it's something that can be helpful just to maybe be that, just a conversation starter as two women, one white, one black, both raising little kids. I've got 4 boys that I'm raising. Cassandra has a son and a daughter. And we're both what we would consider like empowered, powerful women. I see your sign behind your shoulder. And so that's what we're going to do here tonight, is just kind of have a conversation about race. And so I just kind of wanted to start with maybe you just start with what direction do you want that conversation to go in? Is it a race thing for you because a personal story, or is it like the institution of race in our country? I wanted to see that direction.
That's wow. I'm nervous. Like, I'm so glad. First of all, let me just say, I'm so glad that you opened up the conversation, because a lot of the angst and a lot of the hurt feelings and a lot of the protests and a lot of the anger and all of the emotions that you see swirling about, I think, are largely because we don't feel free, or maybe not free. We have not really, like you said, engaged in a true conversation yet. That you hear people saying, we should talk about it, but we haven't. And unfortunately, for people who call themselves friends, right, it's ended up being more of a divisive issue in their friendship or in their relationship than one that brings them together. So important. What was so touching and meaningful for me about this was just that you were ready to hear you were ready to have the conversation. You were ready to hear my side. You were ready to really engage, and we're prepared to be vulnerable and honest. And that, for me, and I think for a lot of people, if I could speak for us, is kind of a huge part of what's missing, is that we're not allowed to engage in a civil, loving, understanding kind of conversation like you and I are going to do. And by having that wall thrown up in front of us so early on, it's hurtful. So it's really touching for me, that you came to me and said, let's talk about this, so I'll start there. And, the experiences, how to open up the conversation. I was thinking about, how are we going to do this, right? Are you going to ask me questions? I'm going to ask you questions. Do I need to do like a Black history lesson here? Like, I wasn't sure, what was going to happen. But I guess if I had to open it anywhere, it's just that there are 2 sides to this story, right? And with the protests, for example, unfortunately, the 2 sides aren't as welcome. The 2 sides aren't as respected. The 2 differing opinions don't appear to be as respected. And it really is just about giving us, and when I say us, I'm talking about Black people, the platform, the respect, the rights, the opportunity to say our side without it somehow being perceived as combative or anti, you fill in the blank, anti-military, anti-white, United States, anti-flag. I mean, there's a million things that is perceived as being anti as soon as we have an opinion. So, just the opportunity in all aspects, whether it's in friendships, whether it's at work, whether it's, in politics, definitely government, there are definitely two sides of the story, and ours just really needs the respect of being heard, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think for me, part of the reason why I get frustrated, I guess, is because I feel like, and again, and let me back up. I was a little nervous to have this conversation too. I felt in my gut it was something I needed to do, but like my defense mechanisms were like, don't do that. Just cancel it. You don't need, you know what I mean? Valerie, you're not the place to put this on your social media. So that I think is, we see that a lot, right? Anytime we're doing something we know we need to do, but it's a little scary. I think it's called bravery, right? When we do it. So I was feeling that too. And I think that part of it was because I feel like I'm gonna say the wrong thing. Like, is it, I feel myself say, like if I say black kid or black woman, I feel myself like say, that feels weird on my tongue. Is that okay for me to say that? Can I describe that person in that way? Like I don't want to hurt people's feelings. I don't want to, but it is like a descriptive word. You know what I mean? And so like that is a very simple question. Is it weird for black people when a white woman were to say, there's a black kid in my son's class that, you know what I mean? Is that like?
It's not weird. So here's the thing. And there's going to be multiple like levels to this answer, right? Because I hear you say that. And because I know you and our history, there's nothing, there's no reaction whatsoever in me when I hear you say that. I could hear that same conversation in line at a grocery store, and immediately my heart starts to beat faster and my guard is up immediately. Don't have to turn around, don't have to see the person, don't have to, there needs to be no context, just immediately it goes on the defensive, because right now I'll say the climate feels like we're under attack. And so when I hear any reference to race, I'm going to automatically assume, and I could be wrong for this, I'm not saying that I'm right in this assumption, because it is a huge assumption, but my automatic thought is, God, I hope they don't say anything super racist, because I don't want to have, that conversation. I don't want to, and I think about that, honestly. It's not necessarily because people say black kid, but I've been in environments where I'm not sure, or I'm nervous about what the conversation is going to be, because people are very bold, people are very, brazen, and people are very audacious with the words and the language and how they're communicating with one another just out of nowhere. I mean, I know you've seen the videos where people are being attacked and with words. And I've wondered, like, oh my God, is this going to be that moment, whether I'm at the gas station or line at the grocery store or at the bank, picking up my kids. So let me circle back. To answer your question, it's not always so much about the actual words that are being said. Right now, for me at least, it's a general fear about it happening at all. Like, almost anything can be said. Almost anything can be said.
Yeah, so back to me at, I looped back, I stuck that question in there, but my original thing that I was gonna say that reminded me when you said, we feel like we're under attack. And I think what frustrates me is I feel like I know these things are happening. I know they're real and they're causing you pain, and that is real. But I also think it's such a minority of people that are the negative, that there's this huge, huge number of people that know that's wrong and aren't like, and so when it's like, oh, all white people, it's not, no, all white people are not that. I guess that's why I wanted to have the conversation, is that there's, just like it's not just like anything else, but we can make a comparison, you and I, in the fitness industry, like when there's early on for me, one little person would say something really negative about muscles or something, and there'd be thousands of people that didn't feel that way. Mm-hmm. But the one person that did, it really stung, right? And it sticks with you. It's like the negative voice is so loud that it's really hard to turn down, and the positive voices doesn't always say anything, right? And so maybe that's what it is. The positive voice here is not saying enough. And so I just wanted you to know that there are a lot of other white people that that get it, that there's negative things going on, but that's not like our heart. Like we don't want to be grouped in, I guess, with that. And so yeah, so I guess that's my frustration, I guess.
No, and I get that, and I believe that. I received that. So I grew up in a conservative Christian private school, which was all white. I was one of like 4 Black kids in the entire high school. Okay, college was very similar. There was more minorities, but it was still largely, white dominant. Then moving into the corporate world, I was usually always the Black person. I mean, I've been the Black person my entire life, and that has given me exposure and access to the white people, right? And and then of course, there's you guys and everyone that's in our network. And not for a moment have I thought that it was ever going to be a divisive issue in our relationship, right? Like race has not come up as an issue with like 99% of my white friends, has not been an issue. But to your point, what's hurtful and what sometimes makes me really emotional is when this stuff comes up, there isn't that positive voice as outraged as we are, right? Like I think it's important to note that, throughout history, I mean, we're the minority, right? We have not made the social advances and the gains that we have alone. We've done it with the assistance and the support of white people who saw the injustice and stood up for us and helped us make this progress. I'm aware enough to give people credit where credit is due. And it feels like right now, while those voices are so needed, they're not there. It's like, don't you see this going on? We can't make any more progress unless you guys who get it start to help us, stand up for us, speak for us. You have the voice and the attention of a huge network of women. And imagine if they saw how Val felt or anyone felt about, what's going on in the NFL right now. What if they heard her and maybe, just maybe, they listened a little closer. Their mind expanded just a little bit more because they identify that you look like them, you look like their sister, their best friend. They identify with you, they get you, they believe you. They know that you've got similar backgrounds and experiences and things that where if you can feel this way, maybe, they've missed out on something. Maybe they can too. And in the times where when I have seen that support come in, it's emotional for me. Like I have literally sat on Facebook and cried when I've seen, my white friends come and comment on some of the things. I post very political, very, pro-Black. I post all of that stuff. And when I see my white friends come on and say, oh, I can't believe that. I'm sorry. I feel for you. Or I don't know what to say. When they come and they say that, I cry. It's so I shouldn't say amazing because it's necessary, but I feel I feel relieved. I feel a sense of relief, like, oh my God, thank God, like that those voices are out there. And every single time someone steps up, it feels like, okay, we're making progress. As long as people keep standing up in support of the various causes, we're making progress. I think what you're saying about, not all white people see it in that one particular way, I think that's understood. I think that's received. I just think we need more. I think we need the voices. We need the activism,
Yeah, I agree. And I've shared with you a little bit about my story, but I want to say this again while we're recording. I was raised in the South. I went to my high school, maybe 50-50 Black and white, maybe actually a little more Black than white. And, but I've lived all over the world really since then. So I grew up there. I've lived in Europe. I've lived in Arizona. And now I live in Maryland. So it's been such a blessing to be able to live all those different places because I've experienced a lot of different cultures, and I've experienced the Black culture and how the Black culture is perceived in all these different cultures. And even within our country, just like town to town, it's very different. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like hugely different. And I won't lie, like where I was raised, people will say that they're not racist. Like I don't know anybody that would just like, when that thing was going, where was it? In South Carolina with the the KKK stuff recently.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was like, who are these people? Like, who are these guys? I don't know one person that would be there and be, you know what I mean? And want to show their, I don't know. And I was raised in the South. I know a lot of Southern men,
Right.
that look like those pictures of those guys, but I don't know anybody that is blatantly racist. Everybody says that they're not, but there are some like ingrained ways that people think that are very racist. Like and because I've moved all around and my view on things has changed, thank God. I hear it, like it just like rings in my ears. I hear stuff sometimes. I'm like, oh my God, that is so racist. But
so you said your views have changed. So was there a point in time earlier in life where that you would have said you had the same viewpoints?
I think that I never would have, in my heart, I think that's the problem with white people is like in our heart, we're not racist. Like I saw on somewhere recently, it said, if you look at the media, you will see that there's these divisions. We're so divided. But if you go to just walk out your front door, you love your neighbor, right? You do anything for your neighbor. And we're all different colors and all different races. And right now I live in a very diverse area. I mean, there's probably right here in my little area while my houses are, it's probably several different nationalities and countries,
Right.
So when you're talking about your personal life and just the people that you know and the people that you interact with at work and school and coach with and go to sports with and all that, you love those people. But it's like this, like the institution of racism is there still. Does that make sense? Like people, in their day-to-day life or not, but there's still some of those things that are deep rooted. And it's like, I didn't see that until I got out of there and moved and saw the world. And
people don't get that experience that you've had. I mean, so many people, and even if they do move from their hometowns that might've been, kind of racist, they don't necessarily move outside their comfort zone, right? They're going to move to other locations that reinforce whatever their current beliefs are, and their families are already living, and that kind of stuff gets passed on generation to generation. So they're not giving themselves the opportunity to learn differently, But to your point about not all white people having hatred in their heart, or not, like they have good hearts. I believe that. I believe all people in general are good natured. I believe everybody generally comes from a place of love. But I will say that as much as I agree with you that there's not hatred in your heart, and 99% of the white people I know, there is still a population where just the sight of me upsets people. The sight of my children upsets people. And I know the word hatred is a hard one to digest as it pertains to this, because I don't think that it's like this boiling, burning, like evil, malicious hatred, but there is definitely a division there that you can't deny. And while it might be a minority, and it's probably being exacerbated by the news and media, because it's one of those issues that can be a news story forever and ever and ever. So I get that, but it's real. That footage, those people, those comments, these actions, the deaths, the beatings, they're real. They're real. And when I see those, it's not that I'm thinking, oh my God, all these white people are so evil. It's that I'm thinking, that could be me. That could be my kids. Like that article I sent you the other day about the little girl, and actually that was in Louisville, where the little girl at the school, a little black girl, the school district this year banned natural hair, like the hair that grows out of her scalp. Like I think about that, like that could be me, that could be my daughter. Dreadlocks, as a matter of fact, have been decided by the Supreme Court to be a reason to deny a person a job. It is a legitimate reason to discriminate. Legitimate by the Supreme Court of the United States. They passed that this hair growing out of my head is a reason that I can be turned down for a job no matter how qualified I am. And so that's not hatred per se, right? I don't think that as they're passing those laws and as they're writing those policies that they're thinking with hatred, but they are definitely motivated from a place of not love. It's not motivated from a place of trying to, make give us equal rights. It's not coming from a place of, trying to make America live up to the name, the standard, the brand that it is about everyone, the land of the free, the home of the brave. It's not giving us, it's not letting us just live. And every time I feel like they're putting their thumb down on us in one way or another, again, maybe it's not hatred, but it's not seeing me as a human being. It's not seeing me, as someone that they have anything in common with or can identify with, a person with real emotions, with real issues, with real love, with real children, with real hopes and dreams. They don't see me as a person when they pass those kind of laws and write those kind of policies. So no, it's not hatred, but it's definitely something else that is so hurtful that, like I said in the post, I posted that article that I shared with you. It's like, it's so hurtful. I don't have words for it. I don't have words for it. Like, how do you look at that little girl, what was she, 12, 13 years old, and said the hair that's naturally growing out, you can't do that. What is she supposed to do? This is how she was born. We literally woke up like this, right? How do we ever get it right? We're viewed as being, kind of back in the slave days, as being less than a full person, less than human, less than you, just based off of what they see. So again, I agree. It's not hatred per se, but it definitely is a diminishing and a demeaning and a degrading of the human being that I am.
Yeah, when you showed me that article, my thought was, what idiot? Like, it's ignorance, right?
It's a whole school district, though. You know what I mean? Several people got together around the table and
I would love to know the rest of that story, because I feel like, you and I have both been to Louisville. Like,
right.
I'm thinking, there's a lot of people that are not, like, what ignorant, I think it's the root of the issue with people is it's an element of fear. I think anytime you're trying to, like, keep your thumb on somebody, there's some element of fear and just straight up ignorance. And so to answer your question, so all this crap is going on, right? Negative stuff. We both agree that.
Right.
And I think the only thing that I can do as a white woman raising children, 4 boys, is just in my own home. Like, when I saw the videos of the KKK guys or whatever, skinheads or whatever, I was thinking, if that was my son, I would whoop his. Right. Where are their mothers?
Right.
Where are their mothers? That's what I was thinking.
Right.
And so I think that's what white women can do. We just have to change the language in our own home. And I have not been always perfect. I will say that. It's gotten over it's been, I had my first son at 19 years old, so this has been, he's almost 18 now. So over 18 years, I think I've grown into a better mom. Now my youngest is 7, so hopefully I'm doing better time around. But my language over the last 18 years has changed in that, and I shared this a little bit with you, which I think is a great step. And my kids, it's not that they don't see color. It's not that we're trying to not recognize.
You have no idea how perfect that is, though. It makes me a little nervous, but I'm trying to be understanding when people say they don't see color, because that's a problem. So I love the fact that you don't try to ignore that, because it's important to acknowledge that there are colorful people out there, and they have different cultures and different ways of language, speaking and dialogue, and
So it's not that we want to ignore that people are different, of course, but my kids really, I was telling you this, I'll say it on video, my kids don't really have very many white friends, oddly enough.
Right.
So I'm proud of that. They see their friends as friends, not friends as this color, this color, this color, this is what I do here or there, they just have friends, right?
Right.
And I shared a picture today with Cassandra. I texted her because I went on a field trip with Hawkins, my 7-year-old, and his teacher said, this little girl in your group, Hawkins has a crush on, and she's a little black girl, right? She's precious and cute. And I don't know if they had a crush on her or not. They just seemed like friends to me today. But again, that's just, his little heart is just, she's a sweet little friend, and like sometimes when I'm trying to figure out what kid they're talking about, like it takes them like 5 minutes to say, the one, he's got little curly black hair. And I'm like, he's got dark
Right.
skin, or you know what I mean? I'm just like,
Right.
just say what he looks like, you know?
Right. But they don't think in
I
those,
don't think about it.
yeah, those descriptive type terms. That's just, Tommy,
Yeah.
duh.
So you know, that I feel like that's that. I feel good that I'm doing that. You know, I'm the next generation, as much as I can control, is going to do better.
And, as it's age appropriate, I guess what I'd add to that, or ask that, you or anyone else watching would add to that, would be an acknowledgement of the differences that, as it pertains to race. I mean, there's going to be a day when they recognize racial divides beyond, the curly hair. There's going to be a day when they know that, their Black friends are perceived this way by other people, and opening up that conversation and say, yeah, it kind of sucks, that Tommy is treated this way because of that, or, that people perceive him or speak to him in that way. As age appropriate, I've had those minor conversations with my kids, because, well, mostly not with my son who's 6, but with my daughter who's 10, because she's very aware, she's very conscious. And I've tried to make sure that we have age appropriate conversations about what it means to be the only Black girl, or actually there's 2 Black girls in her entire elementary school, and what that feels like, and what that means. And how she's allowed to be who she is, and she doesn't have to live with the stereotypes. Similarly, on the opposite side of the conversation, I guess on the white side of the conversation, as it's appropriate, conversations about, just whatever comes up. So you saw the KKK on TV, it's like, hey boys, like, that's not cool. There's people that treat people who look like your friend Tommy like this, and we don't stand for that, and we don't participate in that. We stand up for our friends. We stand up for the people that we love. That kind of advocacy it's the conversation is a great starting point, but we need people to act. Like, we really need progress. We need to take steps in the right direction.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I've definitely, every day of my life, I feel like it's a battle with boys.
Yeah.
Treating people, in general better, but I do avoid, I don't think I turn the news on. I don't hardly ever turn the news on around my boys, so they don't even know. So I'm avoiding those conversations. You're right. I am avoiding it.
Because they're hard conversations.
Right.
They're hard conversations. I mean, I saw a thing, and I posted today about this school in Africa that's teaching both little boys and little girls what consent means, because there's too much sexual assault going on. And I thought, that's, true for Americans too. Like, we need to have those uncomfortable conversations, whether it's about teaching our sons what consent means, and no means no, and yes means yes. And, even the jokes are inappropriate, having that really deeply uncomfortable conversation, as well as race, right? Like, it's just it's not that even that it's a different time. It's just that we should have learned by now that those are conversations that need to be had. We see the repercussions. We're living the experience of not having those conversations. So not having that conversation, or not feeling like it's necessary, or not even thinking about it, actually, the fact that you don't have to think about having that conversation is the white privilege that you often hear Black people talking about. When you talk about white privilege, it's the fact that it's not even a conscious thought, that it never even crosses your mind. There's so many conversations that I have to prepare for, with my son and my daughter, simply because we're Black, that I have no choice but to have. And so when you say, well, I don't know where to start or what questions to ask, that is that privilege that, don't want to begrudge you that necessarily, but it's a lack of awareness. It's a true, in the nicest sense of the word, it's a true ignorance to everything else that's going on, and the stress and the strife and the pain that we go through being a Black person in America, and having to constantly think, constantly be aware, constantly educating, constantly something just to survive in this skin. So, there was a video posted the other day by my girlfriend. I couldn't even watch it. And it was of fathers talking to their children, both boys and girls, about how to handle law enforcement. Like, what does it mean to grow up, and these were kids, like 19 years old. And all I saw from the preview on Facebook was little kids crying and people being very emotional. I was like, I can't watch it, because I know the angst of that conversation. I'm preparing for it, every day, you just never know what you're going to get. And so the fact that it doesn't cross your mind is is a privilege. Like, take a deep breath and like, you know, like, whew, like that's a privilege. That's a privilege. I don't get to experience that.
I mean, I get it. I don't know. I don't mean that I get it. Like, I understand fully, but I do see it because I've seen enough on social media of women talking about having to teach their Black sons how to respond if they get pulled over. You know, I've seen enough videos. This is what you do when you get pulled over. I have not had to have that conversation. I haven't felt the need to have that conversation with my 4 sons.
Right.
So yeah, it's just it's a different, like, it's not something I've had to think about. You know, I haven't had to think about it.
I think at this point in 2017, almost 2018, we should have learned enough from the past to know that we have to have those uncomfortable conversations.
Yeah,
have to.
So would you be open to coming up with maybe a set of questions for different age level kids that would be good conversation starters coming from you, and we put it out as a document for whoever's listening to this that wants to do better. These are some conversations that you can start having. These are for like really young kids. Maybe that's just starting the conversation. And then this would be, you know, elementary, middle school, and then beyond. Because honestly, I just don't know. Like, I didn't even, you know, early in this, I didn't even know, can I say Black kid? Like, even in a nice way, that's just, I don't want to set people off. So I'm just like, he's, you know, I know. Like, it's like somebody at some point, like, we do need to be taught, right? And so would you be open to maybe thinking about that, coming up with the questions that you wish white moms were having a conversation with their kids about?
Yeah, I absolutely would. And, you know, I don't ever want there to, I don't want it to feel like we need to like train you, you know what I mean? Or like, what's happening right now is perfect. And for anyone else who's out there, who's watching, who doesn't know where to start, it's just by saying, you know what, I don't know. But to your point, there could be more proactive, purposeful, you know, conversation taking place in the home. And this is the time. I mean, there's so much, and actually, you know, it's never really gone away, but there's so much going on right now that this is the perfect time to open up a dialogue, you know.
Anything else you can think of that was on your mind to say that you wanted to be sure to talk about?
I don't know why, like all of a sudden I guess the one thing, it's hard to articulate it, but if there's one like kind of lasting or parting thought, it would be that if you see me or any other Black person as being different, and therefore, if you see us as being different and therefore worthy or not worthy, or had it coming, or have any thoughts that believe that because of how we look and what you understand this skin color to mean to you, if you think that we're entitled to different treatment, different protections, different laws, different everything, that's where the soul searching, I guess, begins. It's not so much that you have to be overtly racist because you run around calling people the N-word, or, you know, have hate in your heart. That's not what racism is really today anymore. It's just when you look at me and somehow, or you look at us and somehow we're deserving of losing our job with the NFL. Somehow we're deserving of being killed, being choked, literally not being able to breathe. If you somehow we're deserving of not being able to wear our natural hair, if somehow we're deserving of losing jobs, and just all of this disparate treatment, if somehow we're deserving just because of what you see, that's when you pause and you ask a few more questions of yourself and of the Black people that you do know. You know, that's where the conversation starts. No one thinks that they're a racist, you know, like nobody does. And I don't even really feel comfortable using that word freely because it has a connotation to it that I think is hard for people to accept these days. So it's more about, you know, are you willing to be open? Are you willing to ask questions? Are you willing to like see me as you would your sister? You know, and if you're not, if for some reason just the look of me makes you think I'm somehow different, then we need to start asking ourselves some questions.